Starting your own business is hard. Starting your own online fitness business is even harder because you're going to have to put yourself out there at some point. To do this and to work your way up to the confidence to do it, I want to share with you an exercise called fear setting. This has changed my life. This has changed the life of thousands of students that we worked with. The idea is quite simple. It's based all upon a quote by Seneca. Remember that guy? This is not new. Okay? Seneca once said, "If you wish to stave off all fear, imagine that the worst that can happen most definitely will happen." I'll repeat that again. If you wish to stave off all fear, imagine that the worst that can happen most definitely will happen. What our brain does when we don't understand something, when we haven't made sense of something yet, when we haven't understood the complete situation yet, is it starts to go to all of these crazy conclusions that, to be honest, we can't even understand ourselves. If somebody were to ask you why you're actually scared, what you fear, you probably would not be able to describe it. You might say, "Oh, they're all going to laugh at me," or "Oh, somebody's going to call me stupid on the internet," or whatever it is, but you wouldn't quite understand what that is or how that would make you feel. And to be honest, that might not even be it. So what I recommend is this process where you actually write down the worst case scenario. It seems counterintuitive, but if you wish to stave off all fear, imagine that the worst that can happen most definitely will happen. Because what we do when we write down the worst case scenario is what we realize is very quickly that the worst case scenario is actually not that bad most of the time. Okay, it's going to cost me X amount of dollars. Like if everything goes wrong, every single thing that could go wrong, it's going to cost me X amount of dollars that I'm going to lose. All right, that would suck. But am I okay with that in exchange for taking a risk, in exchange for learning something, in exchange for proving to myself whether or not there's something to this idea? Maybe, maybe not. But you don't know that until you actually know what the cost is. Oh, somebody's going to laugh at me or somebody's going to call me stupid on the internet. Well, like, maybe that'll really take you down. But one of the things is once that happens to you once, you realize that it's actually not that big of a deal. There are a lot of people who have said things about me on the internet, believe me. It's not very much fun when it first happens, but as it happens more and more and more and more, you just start to laugh at it, and then you start to reflect on it and say, okay, well, is this an area where I actually can improve? Maybe it is, right? Feedback can be positive, even if it's kind of wrapped in this kind of anger, I don't know, vibes, but the reality of it is it might be positive. Who knows? And then the last thing that I want to talk to you about is courage. And courage is a wonderful, wonderful concept because nobody's born with courage. Courage actually happens when you fail, because oftentimes when you fail, almost always, especially if you've done this fear setting exercise, and by the way, if you do this fear setting exercise and you imagine the worst case scenario and it really is unbearable, you may decide not to take that path. You may decide not to take action, or you may decide to take action in a different way. Again, very, very valuable. The idea with courage, though, courage builds as you fail. Courage builds as you try stuff. And when you fail, when you try stuff and it doesn't quite work out, you realize that it's actually not that big of a deal. Because I can guarantee you, as somebody who's tried a heck of a lot of things in a heck of a lot of different arenas, from live events to conferences to various coaching programs to 11 books to multiple websites to everything in between, I can tell you right now that not everything's going to work out. But what the beautiful thing is, when you try stuff, the odds of what you actually try working out the way that you initially intended are pretty slim to none. The odds that it's going to work out in a way that you never could have anticipated if you never tried are pretty good. And that's actually really, really cool, because when you try stuff, it almost always works out in a way that you never could have anticipated, never could have imagined before you tried. If you try to perfectly set this thing in place, I can tell you right now, it's not going to happen that way anyway. And that's just the reality. So courage builds as you try stuff. Maybe you'll fail, maybe you'll try stuff and it'll work out, but it won't quite work out the way that you imagine it is, worked out a different way, and you learn. And as you keep going, you start building more and more courage. This is not an overnight thing, and this is not anything that people are born with. So I hope that helps you overcome fear. I hope that helps you try stuff, because really, it's pretty cool when you do.